Greetings, good evening. Welcome to this evening's talk in the Yale Institute of Sacred Music series, Lectures in Art, Faith, and Social Justice. I'm Evan Graves from the ISM, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you for tonight's event, which is titled Listening While Muslim, Searching for the Sounds of a Just Future. In addition to the Yale ISM, tonight's lecture is presented with support from the Yale University Chaplain's Office and the South Asian Studies Council at the Yale Macmillan Center. Before I introduce our two speakers tonight, let me tell you about our next and final lecture in the series. That's going to be on Thursday, April 15th with Stephen Blackmer. And that is titled Original Beauty, Nature as the First Source of Beauty and Divine Inspiration. And you can register for that webinar and other events at ism.yale.edu/events. After tonight's lecture, we're going to have some time for Q&A. You'll find a little Q&A button there at the bottom of the webinar screen. And you can feel free to put your questions in there anytime during the lecture, and we'll try to get to them all at the end. So with that, I'm really happy to introduce tonight's two speakers. First, we have Abdul-Rehman Malik, an award-winning journalist, educator, and cultural organizer. In June 2019, he was appointed lecturer and associate research scholar at the Yale Divinity School. He also serves as a program coordinator at Yale University's Council on Middle East Studies and is responsible for developing curricula and partnerships with public schools to promote better cultural, language, and religious literacy about the Middle East to educators and students alike. He also serves as director of the Muslim Leadership Lab, an innovative student leadership program being incubated now at Dwight Hall Center of Social Justice at Yale. And secondly, we have Asad Ali Jafri, a cultural producer, organizer, and artist. He also DJs under the monikers Mana Wax and Ace Wonder. You're going to get to hear some of these DJing skills, which I've got a preview of, and they're just fantastic. Using a grassroots approach and global perspective, Asad connects artists and communities across imagined boundaries to create meaningful engagements and experiences. Asad has 2 decades of experience as an arts organizer and administrator, and currently is the executive director at the South Asia Institute in Chicago. So I know it's difficult to give them a warm welcome over the webinar, but I ask you to send your virtual greetings to them. And I think we're going to start off right now with a little bit of video.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
future in your front. There ain't no future in your front. There ain't no future in your front.
Just serving justice, just serving justice, just serving justice, just serving justice, 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 justice.
Friends, I want to say thank you for being with us today, and thank you for joining us for listening while Muslim. What is it to listen while Muslim? We're gonna invite you for the next 60 or 70 minutes or so to attach a new lens, a kind of an oral lens, if you will, AURAL, to your ears, and to listen to the sounds, the musics, the rhythms, and the vibes over the course of this next hour, as if you were listening with the ears of a Muslim. Listening while Muslim was a project that was born out of an artist residency that Asad and I collaborated on several years ago. And what we wanted to do was take audiences and ourselves on these sonic soul journeys to discover how music and how contemporary music and how musical movements express and are expressed by Muslimness and Islam. You know, it's said that creation itself emerged from God's justice. That's certainly what we hear from Muslim theologians of the past and of the present, that when Muslim theologians in the modern day speak about liberation and speak about the desire to build compassionate and merciful societies, that those societies are built on a desire for and a pursuit of justice. Tonight, we're going to ask you to close your eyes at times and listen. Listen to the ways in which music becomes hermeneutic, in which music becomes the way that this call to justice is interpreted and expressed. And joining me, as I said, is my collaborator, my friend, although he's a bit younger than me, often my mentor, Asad Ali Jafri.
Thank you, AR. I'm extremely excited about this topic tonight, searching for the sounds of a just future, because it really brings together this idea that I think both of us really been inspired by, of futurisms, as well as a just world, right? And bringing those together. And before I was looking for the perfect beat as a DJ, a few years before that, I was 16 years old, and I was a super nerd into sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. And at the same time, I was really heavily into hip hop, and especially hip hop inspired by the 5% Nation, or the Nation of Gods and Earths. I was also practicing the martial arts heavily, and I was inspired by my mentors that were part of the Nation of Islam, as well as friends that were part of the new Black Panther Party. And of course, this all came together in the music for me often. But there's an artist I wanted to start with, and an artist that's kind of out of left field. His name is Divine Styler. And Divine Styler kind of journeys through these different kind of understandings of the world and his own Muslimness as well, between about 1989 and 1999, with 3 different albums. And the interesting thing about Divine Styler to me is that it keeps changing, and he's influential on underground folks like DJ Shadow, Styles of Beyond, and even Everlast. So I want to just play 2 songs. One is from a 1992 album, another one off of a 1999 album. The first album was called Spiral Walls Containing Autumns of Light. So you can just understand where his headspace was at. Really kind of trippy album. The second album is Word Power 2 Directrix. That album is all songs about his journey as a Muslim, especially going to Mecca. And I remember getting this album in my hand, the vinyl, it having a picture of the Kaaba in Mecca. It's starting with the recording of the Azan, or the Muslim call to prayer, and having an instrumental track called the Fatiha, or the opening chapter of the Quran. However, I'm going to play an exclusive. You can't find it online or digitally, but we're going to find a remix of it. So we're going to do these 2 tracks back to back, if that's okay with everyone.
scope of erotica functions. I've been walking this earth for a while, y'all. Did it all from bubble in the sound, y'all. Crime king, womanizer, broad child on the planet. I didn't contribute nothing but static. Then I got the word of God in Islam. About 10 years ago, I began to solve. I dominated in my life, my inner Arabon. Changed the key. Get off and let it out. Hit the mosque, makes a lot, I'm saying no doubt. You know, original man, they wanna hold down. With parole for control and stay low-cal. The dean for you and me is all we got to look forward to. You Muslim and you see, cause they adore you. Your mom's in the fam want the man back. The struggle and strife, black life demand that. They understand we in the economic dope fiend. We just flip the hustle legit and Spain clean. Enterprise again, cause we original man. Stole from the motherland and made America. I ain't having it, I'm taking her, I made her. Now she laid up off my blood and sweat and tears, she better raise up.
And so when I'm listening to Divine Styler and I'm hearing him talk about Make It Plain and the original man and talking about what he's due as justice, but also the evolution he has about what his life was like before and this reinvention of self and the way that he keeps reinventing himself, almost his future self, right, is really inspiring to me.
Asad, Divine Styler was such a revelation for me because you introduced Divine Styler to me, and that second track, it takes us kind of like into the heart of this deeply spiritual religious experience, but the sound is actually like emergent and generative, right? It's not like we're going back to a ritual. It's like that ritual is appearing before us as something like new. I'm hearing it with my Muslim ears as something new. Asad, I want us to take us back a little bit further even. And I want to take us back to the year 1914, an important year for many reasons, but tonight an important year for us to recognize because it was the year that the master, the mentor, the guru, the innovator, the ustad, the sheikh, Sun Ra was born. Sun Ra within music, and not just jazz. To limit Sun Ra to one genre is to limit his genius. Sun Ra represents not only a type of music and a type of aspiration to connect his experience as a Black man in America to the experience of Africa and the African continent, but it is someone who has established an entire school, an entire universe. In some ways, people have said that Sun Ra is the place where modern day Afrofuturism begins. This idea that we don't see the water of the Atlantic between us, but an experience, right, of Blackness and Africanness that is expressed through music. Let's listen to this track. It's called Watusa, and I think we'll begin to get a sense of the aesthetic of Sun Ra and his aspiration to look to the past and to the deeply political and divided present that he lived in to imagine a remarkable, almost like inconceivably beautiful future.
What's incredible to me about Sun Ra is that track was recorded in the late 50s in Chicago. It didn't come out till a little bit later, but he was so far ahead of his time. And to say he was just a pioneer, I think, is shortchanging him a bit, right? And he was not only a pioneer in the music, aesthetics, right? Philosophies, this idea of reinvention, taking on the name Sun Ra and what that means that early, right? And continuing to evolve and tell people that he was a being that existed outside of the earth and had come from Saturn. And so many people are influenced by that in so many different ways, right? People are influenced by it musically, like we said, philosophically, through his aesthetic. And one of those people that was influenced by him was kind of the pioneer in Egyptian jazz. And that is Salah Ragab, who meets Sun Ra in Sun Ra's first visit to Egypt and then records with him in the 80s. And Sun Ra actually records a track from Salah Ragab that Salah Ragab had composed. This was probably the first time that Sun Ra did that. They had this kinship, and Salah Ragab ends up playing congos in this track. The other special thing about this track is it's called the Dawn, and it's inspired by the rituals that happened before the morning Fajr prayer in Egypt specifically. Why don't we hear this?
I'm so taken with this piece. I gotta say two things before we move on. One is that I see the connective tissue between this piece and Divine Styler's piece that you played right at the beginning, right? Because there's this thing about the call to prayer, the rituals of prayer, which become encoded in the music. When I'm hearing that, I'm hearing the morning zikr, the swaying, the la ilaha illallah, the call to the divine, the call to the ancients and the ancestors being invoked as people are getting ready for prayer. And Salah Ragab is just, I mean, these incredible jazz movements that emerge in Egypt and Sudan and elsewhere in some ways are that connective tissue. They're making that exchange, that musical exchange possible. And that the fact that Sun Ra was drawn to these people is not by accident, right? These folks meet because there is an imagination there, right? And there's an imagination of what the music can do. But so much of what we're going to be looking at today and the musics that we're going to be looking at today are done by the children, right? And the grandchildren of Sun Ra. And one of those majestic and still living, God bless him and preserve him, personalities is the incredible Pharoah Sanders. And I know you and I have been tripping for the last few months on Pharoah Sanders, but Pharoah Sanders is someone who is deeply embedded in Sun Ra's aesthetic, in Sun Ra's vision of seeing the world anew. But Pharoah is also deeply committed into taking tradition, particularly Islamic and Eastern traditions, and encoding them into the music, but then bringing in musics from all over the place and inventing almost a style all his own that reminds us that we are struggling, we are fighting, we are engaged in spiritual warfare. But in that spiritual warfare, as this next track tells us, the Creator has a master plan. So we're on the right track. Listen to this one closely because there's a lot happening in this music.
Well, all right. Star Child, citizens of the universe, recording angels. We have returned to claim the pyramids. Partying on the mothership. I am the mothership connection. Getting down in 3D. Light year grooving. Well, all right. You hear the noise? Ain't nobody but me and the boys. Get down. Hit it, fellas. Swing low, time to move on. Light years in time, ahead of our time. Free your mind and come fly with me. It's hip on the mothership.
Asad, tell us about the mothership. We just heard George Clinton in Parliament. What is going on?
That track, I had to play that because as you talk about the offspring of Sun Ra, George Clinton, Parliament, Funkadelic are definitely part of that universe, right? And what I love about Sun Ra is if you watch his movie, Space is the Place, if you listen to his music, if you look at the album covers, Sun Ra is world building. Sun Ra is myth making, and he's doing it really, really early on. And of course, who takes that, I think, to even a different level is George Clinton with his own world building, with his own myth making. And that to me is incredible. The mothership connection, as I said, I was heavily influenced by the Nation of Islam. And if you think about the Nation of Islam, they're almost like the prototype, even perhaps prior to Sun Ra, on Afrofuturism, in retrofuturism, in talking about technology that has existed centuries ago, that was even further advanced than what we have. And I think that George Clinton taps into this. George Clinton talks about these things, reclaiming the pyramids, right? And a mentor of mine from the Universal Zulu Nation, Lord Cassius D, sat us down one day when I was in my early 20s and had started, looking for the perfect beat on the ones and twos. And he told us that there was a depth to George Clinton that we may not understand, and that the funk was the truth. And all of the things that he was talking about were symbols and icons for this search for the truth with a capital T. And he talked about the characters within this world, like Sir Nose devoid of funk, someone who could not see the truth, and how George Clinton and Parliament and Funkadelic had to bring these people, just kind of like the 5% or the deaf, dumb, and blind. All of that would have to do. And to me, that was mind-blowing. And you see this in George Clinton's music as he creates these worlds.
You bring us back to hip hop, Asad, and the Universal Zulu Nation, and the fact that these movements were moving out of these world building almost ecosystems, wasn't it? I mean, when we think about people like Clinton and Sun Ra in the biography speaks about his deep engagement with Black Islam and Black Muslims, and this idea that what he shared with them about the vision of the world anew and of this past, which wasn't in the past, but was here and now, this capacity to create and to be free. Let's listen to this next track, because I think in a way this is the grandchildren of George Clinton and that generation, because this is hip hop now in the service of that just future, but also with an eye to what is happening right around them.
Hey, beautiful bird, I said, digging her somber mood. The fascists are some heavy dudes. They don't really give a damn about life. They just don't want a woman to control her body or have the right to choose. But baby, that ain't nothing. They just want a male finger on the button. Because if you say war, they will send them to die by the score. Aborting mission should be your volition. But if Suda and Thomas have their way, you'll be standing in line unable to get welfare while they'll be out hunting and fishing. It has always been around. It will always have a niche. But they'll make it a privilege, not a right, accessible only to the rich. Hey, pro-lifers need to dig themselves, because life don't stop after birth. And for a child born to the unprepared, it might even just get worse. The situation would surely change if they were to find themselves in it. supporters of the H-bomb and firebombing clinics. What type of shit is that? Orwellian, in fact. If Roe v. Wade was overturned, would not the desire remain intact, leaving young girls to risk their health, doctors to botch and watch as they kill themselves? Now, I hate to sound macabre, but hey, isn't it my job to lay it on the masses and get them off their asses to fight against these fascists? So, whatever you decide, make that move with pride. Sid will be there and so will I. An insect till I die.
And you know, that was of course Diggable Planets, and specifically Ishmael Butterfly. And that track to me is deep because of course Diggable Planets have this throwback sound of jazz and soul, but their lyrics and what they talked about and even their style was always kind of futuristic to me in the early 90s. They also had these kind of pseudo Islamic references or these bouts with Muslimness from Ladybug Mecca or the references in their lyrics. But this song was way ahead of its time for being such a vocal pro-choice song at a time when other hip hop artists were not talking about this in this way. And I think for me, I used to listen to Diggable Planets back in the day, and I never really thought about this song much because I think I was too young to understand. And later I came back to it and I was like, whoa, Butterfly was way ahead of his time in terms of the hip hop context there. Of course, now he's on to Shabazz Palaces, which is a whole different conversation about Afrofuturism and this kind of new kind of take on Islamic iconography and Islamic art. But that's a different conversation to have. I wonder if we can go to this next track because I think
Let's do it.
this person is really interesting and fascinating to me, and I don't want to categorize them because I think they don't think of things in the binaries. I think they don't think of the things in the linear. I think they don't even think of things in the way that we do about humans in general. But this voice is a Black voice, a Muslim voice at times, and also a voice that doesn't conform to gender norms. But this is an important song called Shirk, an Islamic reference if folks know it. And it's by another person that was around during that Diggable Planets time, Michelle Ndegeocello.
You believe
you did nothing wrong to lead us down this road. I wallow in shame while you sit there on your throne. When I miss you, I cry. I miss you. I'm sorry I lied. You can't forgive, and I can't forgive you. We can't forgive.
This track is called Shirk, which is this kind of really powerful term of theology in Islam, which means association with God. And when I hear that title up against what is this powerful love song, right? It takes faith and these kind of concepts right into the deeply personal about love and about love lost. And can you love God and be connected to the divine and still love another human being? And is there some kind of association that we're doing in terms of placing our love in different places? This is a deep theological meditation. And I think that's part of Asad, I really feel like the future building work that is happening in these musics, right, is that the music itself becomes the terrain to understand faith, to spirituality, to generate almost like what we might call theological thinking. And I think what Michelle in some ways introduces us to is an entire ecosystem of artists, of musics, of composers, of visionaries who are using that music to really confront, right? Anger, hatred, injustice, and oppression.
And of
And one
course,
of sorry, go ahead, Asad.
no, and I think, the things that we're not mentioning is also if you apply like a Sufi lens to George Clinton, if you want, and the funk or the truth, or Michel Cello, right? We can understand these worlds in different ways. And one can easily say that this world building, this myth making, this future imagining is escapism, but it's not in these terms, right? It's this radical approach to saying, no, there is a different possibility, right? And I think all of those things come together in these musics in a beautiful way.
We're good. Let's listen to this. Let's listen to this incredible track from an incredible artist, and then we'll talk about her on the back of listening. This is Angel Bat Daweed, and she's got an incredible story. Comes out of the Black church in terms of music, Christian, gospel, and ecstatic musical traditions. And yet that first track is called Destination Dr. Yusuf Lateef. I want to highlight that because I think there's something really important happening here in the context of our conversation. Dr. Yusuf Lateef, as many of you will know, was a giant in jazz music. But Dr. Yusuf Lateef was a scholar of Islam, and particularly of Islamic education. With a PhD from University of Massachusetts Amherst, just down the road. But Dr. Yusuf Lateef was also a writer of speculative fiction and sci-fi poetry and novels. Dr. Yusuf Lateef connected his music and his scholarship to imagining worlds as they could be. And at the heart of them was an engagement and just a being with his Blackness, that his characters emerge from his experience, his communities, the places where he was creating music. And I think it's telling. Angel Bat Daweed chooses in that almost ethereal celebration to celebrate Dr. Yusuf Lateef, because Dr. Yusuf Lateef's work exists, I think, it's almost quantum, right? Exists in multiple universes, and she's kind of bringing that together, and that's the destination that we want to get to. And on the back of that, we heard Black Family, which is this anthem to the strength of Black family and Black community as a resistance, I think, to so many of the prevailing notions of white supremacy, which have been internalized by so many of us about the Black family as being like a destructive space or a destructed space. This is her kind of planting her flag firmly in community and in family.
And saying love as resistance, right? This whole album, it's called The Oracle, right? Which is telling in itself. And Angel Bat Daweed is one of these young jazz musicians that I think is, again, genre bending. We talk about Dr. Yusuf Lateef and how globally inspired he was, but how he influenced the globe as well, right? Creating albums, collaborating with people. And I want to think about this young cadre of jazz musicians who are, again, not just sticking to the jazz genre as such, but are doing some incredible things with their music and with what they're trying to say with their music. So why don't we listen to these three tracks back to back, and we'll talk a little bit about who they are. But this is stuff that is happening within the last couple of years, really.
is an honor for me to be speaking again after a long time.
Our time
as victims is over. We will no longer ask for justice. Instead, we will take our retribution. Our time as victims is over.
We'll take our retribution, yes we will.
We will no longer ask for justice.
I don't think you heard me.
Instead,
But our time,
we will take our retribution.
So what you heard just there, we started with this incredible artist, a jazz trumpeter, a British Bahraini artist named Yaz Ahmed, who has this incredible album that we took that track off of. If you can get your hands on the vinyl, please do. It's called Polyhymnia, and it's just this incredible gatefold album as well, as you can see. And this entire album is dedicated to different women, each track throughout history or contemporary. And that track, if you notice the lyrics in it, is dedicated to Malala Yousafzai. After that, we go right into Kamasi Washington and Fist of Fury, right? Another kind of anthemic track. And Kamasi Washington, if you haven't heard of his albums, the music, the performances, this shows us when people say jazz is dead, that jazz is not only alive, but has something to say right now. And then the last track we heard was Sons of Kemet, another incredible group, even if you think of Sons of Kemet, right? Coming out of the UK, led by Shabaka Hutchings, who is an amazing, amazing, multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist musician, also has a group you should check out called Shabaka and the Ancestors. These artists are also collaborating with each other. Shabaka produces one of Yaz Ahmed's albums as well. They collaborate with people like the Chicagoan Micaiah McCraven, and they're part of, like I said, this new cadre of artists that are just as much steeped in justice and the fight for justice as they are on this legacy of jazz music.
And it's telling that that track was called The Long Night of the Queen, Octavia Butler. And so much of the music of the Sons of Kemet is a celebration of particularly these female icons within the Black tradition and within Black history. Asad, I think it's time to think things explicitly global. I think we're talking about, we're touching on, we're going to Africa and other places and seeing the ways in which, I hate the word fusion, it's synthesis, it's cross-fertilization, it's conversation that is happening between musics that are imagining a just future. Let's listen to these next two tracks back to back.
AR, why don't we go backwards on that one? That last track we heard was Khruangbin, who is this incredible group out of Texas. They're a trio. And when I first heard of them a few years ago, I used to DJ a lot of their music because it was heavily influenced by Thai psychedelic rock. And then they changed a bit and they started getting influenced by places like Iran, places like South Asia. And that particular track is the track that's the cover of a Bollywood song called Khuda Bhi Asman Se, sung by Muhammad Rafi. And that is kind of mind-blowing to me because it was also a Spotify single, meaning Spotify actually produced that song. And I think when we talk about fusion, which has become a dirty word in music, I really think people like Khruangbin are doing this amalgamation of sounds that is authentic, that is relevant, that makes sense in the current moment. And of course, the other person that's doing that really well from a different kind of tangent is Dhafir Yusuf.
And that was the first track that we heard. That was Dhafir Yusuf's Cosmology. I've had the privilege of seeing Dhafir Yusuf live a few times. And I have to tell you that it is an immersive, a kind of soul-shaking experience. Dhafir Yusuf is this North African multi-instrumentalist, composer, Sufi, imagining kind of spirituality as it's sort of embodied and contained and moved by music. And like I almost term his work quantum Sufism, right? He's kind of, through his notes suggesting kind of the atomic world and and asking us to go into that atomic world to see what spiritual resonances there are. That the thing that Dhafir does, Asad, and you know this, we've talked about it, is that the moment you're lulled into a space of peace, of sakina, you hear that voice, his piercing voice, just cut through us. And that's the moment that your hairs stand on end and that you take a step back and you're broken out of it. Dhafir Yusuf is inserting into that quantum spirituality the pain of the human experience, of what is happening in our hearts, how we're contending with the here and now. When I hear Dhafir Yusuf, it is at once healing and at once a reminder of the brokenness of the world. It's magnificent. And I think Dhafir Yusuf himself would say that he is the child of the Pharaoh Sanderses and the Sun Ra's and of that tradition. And he's an incredible collaborator as well.
When we think of our worlds that we're living in, right, and the futures that we're imagining, these are the types of musics that I think are being created right now to imagine that, right? These places that don't have borders, that don't understand people in the same divisive ways that we do, that don't live in these vacuums, right? And I saw this record at a record store and I had to pick it up, shared it with everybody I knew and was like, we need to listen to this collectively. I'm just going to play this track followed by 2 other tracks, and then we can talk a little bit about them because to me, these next few are kind of mind-blowing.
And I can't escape, I get blown away when you come my way, when you come my way.
So in that one, we heard Siti Muharram from Zanzibar taking Tarab music into a completely different direction. And that track called Pakistan blows my mind. And this whole album is for her great-grandmother, a pioneer of Tarab music. And these associations with Pakistan, Hindustan, right? These understandings of what that means in that part of the world and what it doesn't mean, right? Is all kind of there within that music. And then after that, we hear this crazy album track. There's this group called Guess What out of France. And this track is off of this album called Al-Khawarizmi. We'll talk about it in a second. And the name of the track is Kitab Surat al-Ard, the book of the face of the earth, right? And this had my mind blown because, of course, AR, who is this person that this album has been dedicated to?
Khawarizmi is arguably the father of the algorithm, right? Of one of the pioneers of mathematics. I think the very digital code that is allowing us to communicate right now with all of our friends who are on this call, I mean, it leads us right back to Al-Khawarizmi, right? And that mathematical genius would set into motion really contemporary and modern, quote unquote, mathematics. And here's this incredible celebration, and it is almost algorithmic. The music, begins with certain beats, adds others, takes it makes it kind of exponential. It's such an incredible track. And I think, sorry, Asad, I was going to say that something you said earlier, like, really resonated with me as I was listening to these tracks, which is about like a just future recognizes the injustice of borders. And highlights the porousness of our cultures, and that you can't be Zanzibari and not contend with the reality of the Indian Ocean, both the trade and the commerce of the Indian Ocean, but also I think about this in terms of the Indian Ocean trade in enslaved peoples, right? That part of what's happening in this area of exchange is also profound violence, and I think all of that is encoded into this music, right? This music emerges from all of these kind of experiences and influence. But that last track was interesting, wasn't it? It's by an interesting outfit called Sudan Archives. Tell us about that.
It's by Sudan Archives, who's signed to Stone's Throw, plays violin and fiddle, and was really inspired by music from West Africa, from Sudan, from global musicians that claim those places as home. But Brittany Denise Parks, who is Sudan Archives, is not necessarily from the Sudan herself. And so that track, Come My Way, is kind of this global reclaiming of these ideas of sounds and musics. But I want to move back a little bit, and I want to move to the next step, and I want to talk about, how about we just play these next few tracks and then we talk about them?
Let's do that, Asad. Let's do it.
Yeah.
shouldn't have walked through the streets. Went through the checkpoints where people get harassed by MPs. Colonizers commit horrors that you wouldn't believe. I seen scars from the government's torture techniques. I seen the land in Batir overflowing with crops. Been on blocks with kids in the head should get shot up by cops. Just like Palestinians, my people fill the prisons. And just like Hawaiians, they ain't down for occupation. All oppressors are the same. Cowards and lames, their struggle is my struggle. Their pain is my pain. As sure as the sun sets, again it will rise. I see self-determination in the children's eyes, saying we will remain, we will not be erased. So full of disdain, I'll throw a rock at your tank. I got big love for Gaza and the West Bank. The resistance in your people, it is top rank. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
You know, we can't talk about a just future and not talk about our indigenous brothers and sisters. We need to talk about the ideas of land itself, right? Because we're talking about borders. And the first track that we played was actually a track, and I'm sorry because this section kind of makes me emotional. The first track was a tribute to the American Indian movement by Maimuna Yusuf and Three Generations, which includes Mama Wapajaya, her mother, Navasha Daya. And Maimuna Yusuf and her family are Black, they're Choctaw, and they're Muslim. And they bring all of those identities into their musics. This particular track is moving for me because I was on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and you can do history outside of this to know what happened there. But it was an emotional period, and an elder from the American Indian movement led us in ceremony in a sweat lodge. And when I hear that song, I think of that time. But then we move into First Nations from north of the border, and we talk about a tribe called Red, who is now known as the Hallucination, who are really innovating with their sounds. They're bringing in this electronic sound to these traditional music forms, right? And this is where it gets exciting, right? It's taking something that you own for hundreds and hundreds of years and then remixing it in the way so many hip hop and other artists do into something that's new, that you can understand both the retro futurism of it as well as the current contemporary nature of it.
And with the Hallucination, or as they were known, Tribe Called Red, there's also been a really interesting intentionality to create like a musical link with Muslimness and the Black experience. And so I'm thinking back to their incredible track R.E.D. that they did with Yasin Bey, Mos Def, and Narcy, an incredible MC out of Montreal. And in that, we're hearing the layers, right? We're hearing this indigenous sound layered over Arabic verse, layered over the lyrics of Mos Def, who begins the track by saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And none of it is dissonant. It's all resonant. It's all generative. And I think in some ways what I feel like the Hallucination is doing is like creating this kind of musical longhouse for us, right? A fraternal community.
And we have to talk about solidarity in that way, right?
And where all the siblings can come together. Exactly. And I think this last song is all about solidarity. And I know you know this artist, Asad.
Yes, this is Punahele from Hawaii. And he's always talking about self-determination, Hawaiian sovereignty. But Punahele went to Palestine and had a deeply moving experience as an artist there, and comes back and is writing songs like this as well, because he sees these two different movements that have some solidarity. And in that way, we realize, again, we're not living in these vacuums. And these just futures mean that we're more connected to each other rather than less connected. So much love to Punahele, one of the most humble artists, always speaking truth to power. And I'm going to keep it moving quickly. And we're going to talk about this idea of the past is the future, is the past, and getting these kind of global inspirations for our current. And because of the people in the back, I'm going to go with the video and show you some visuals because this is powerful as well.
Ensemble, mes frères, mes sœurs, nous allons commencer une nouvelle lutte une lutte sublime qui va mener notre pays à la paix, à la prospérité et à la grandeur.
Hey, hey, you out there, they say we all lost our way. Hey, hey, you out there, no things change day to day. But we all know which way to go. We all know which way to go. We all know which way to go. Which way to go. Which way to go. No, boundary, roadblock, barricade, gunshot, politician, dirty cop, they don't stop us. No boundary, roadblock, barricade, gunshot, politician, dirty cop, they don't stop us. No boundary, roadblock, barricade, gunshot, politician, dirty cop, they don't stop us. No boundary, roadblock, barricade, gunshot, politician, dirty cop, they don't stop us. No. 100 million feet on the pavement.
On the pavement.
100 million eyes on the prize.
On the prize.
And we ain't got no fear in our hearts
No
now.
fear.
And we ain't about to run no hide. You know they can't cage change.
Can't cage it.
You know they can't kill justice.
Can't kill it.
You know they can't persuade us with their corporate media. You know we don't trust it. All in together now, can't hold us down. All in together now, black, white, red, yellow, brown. All in together now, can't hold us down. All in together now, black, white, red, yellow, brown.
Man, Asia Black, Big Samir, the reminders are that's music to heal the soul and to inspire action, isn't it? I know you've worked so closely with the reminders.
I mean, the reminders, that's the extended family right there. And I think that song is just so timely. It's invoking Lumumba, right? It's thinking about the Congo in that way, which is a direct connection for Samir. And then Asia Black kind of taking us through these different lyrical forms, right? And talking about what we can do right now in the moment, but that's inspired from the past that then again inspires the future.
I mean, Asia and Big Samir are this kind of incredible balance point, right? Between action, reflection, between music that is inclusive and music that marks out what are the red lines for resistance. But I know that underneath that is this kind of deep spiritual practice, isn't it? And you can hear it in the beat, in the rhythm. It reminds me of zikr. It reminds me of the circles of remembrance that are so iconic within the practice of spirituality, of Sufism in Islam. I'm hearing that sound and I'm drawn in because resistance is a spiritual practice. And that and Lumumba's voice is kind of like this clarion call to which we're heading with that remembrance in our hearts. That, I mean, Lumumba's alive, and this is the just future which he is still calling to.
And we need to dig into that spiritual calling a little bit more, because I think that is at the heart of Listening While Muslim and speaking about a just future, right? So why don't we play another video that I think really speaks to this as well. That, of course, is the incredible Niaz, led there by Asad Ali. And they are just exploring so much there, but they're intentionally are using languages and places that are not usually in the limelight, right? And that is a traditional Afghan folk song in Dari with some Farsi as well. And that entire project, the Fourth Light Project, is a tribute to Rabi al-Basri, a Sufi saint, a woman that was so deeply in love with the divine, right? And that whole project is about that idea of that divine love, which is again this call for a spiritual form of justice, right? I'm gonna keep going just because we're running a little bit.
Let's do it.
Time,
This next track, this next track is so powerful, and I think it shapes what we've just heard so beautifully. Let's do it.
علي يا علي يا علي علي يا علي يا علي وزوج البتول علي نعم الرسول علي يرضى عليك الله علي عمر القبور علي
That is Majid Bekas, North African Ganawa musician.
And the track is Ali Ya Ali, which celebrates the first Imam Ali, one of the first believers in the prophetic message, the Prophet's cousin, his son-in-law, and the personality and the individual through whom most of Islamic Sufi traditions lead back to and through. And I think this recognition of the Prophet's family, of Ali and his son, Imam Hussein, and their sacrifice for justice on the fields of Karbala is something so evocative, and it's so at the heart of Islamic traditions, right? And I think, you know, that our Shia sisters and brothers and fraternal family hold the example of Imam Hussein and continue to keep it alive in some ways for all of us. But our Islamic past also teach us that narrative of Karbala and the rising up against oppression has been such an important part of the Islamic tradition. At its very core.
And it informs us on social justice today, right? It's an example that we can kind of live out. And this is really important for Muslims, but it's also an example for everyone. It's very universal in a sense. And I intentionally played a Ganawa song instead of a Qawwali, which has a lot of like songs about Imam Ali. But I wanted to show something a little different. Also, you don't always hear this in recorded Ganawa music. And there's a reason for that, because Ya Ali and saying Ya Ali or Ya Ali Madad and things like that can actually get you in trouble in some places, unfortunately. So this is also, to me, an act of revolution. The other thing to me is when I think about what's sacred, right? I think about the ancestors. I think about sacred lands. I think about what people are singing about from different kind of walks of life and spiritualities and understandings of worlds. And to me, people like Imam Ali, people like Hazrat Fatima and others are our spiritual ancestors that we call into the space. They are, for some of us, they are physical ancestors that we call into the space. Just like my brothers and sisters in Hawaii have the sacred lands of Mauna Kea, we have sacred lands in places like Karbala or Najaf that are important to us for other reasons. So again, this is part of the human family, and us talking about justice in this way where we claim what is sacred to us, right? And what is important to us.
And Asad, I think in this act of resistance, as we go into our last few tracks before we open it up for conversation and discussion with those who are here, I want to remind us that when Niyaz invokes someone like Rabia of Basri, right, of Basra, Rabia al-Basri rather, and and her example of this radical love for God, which put her at odds in many ways with some of the prevailing religious opinions of her time, deeply grounded in faith, and yet something that ritual was just a way for her to explore the possibilities of love, and for Niaz to bring that as an exemplar, right, into not only a performance space, but to ask us, to force us to contend with that powerful message of love that was there in the first generations of the Islamic tradition, to me is really powerful, and an important reminder, as you said, Asad, to connect to the ancestors and the intentionality with which they were acting in the world. These last few tracks, Asad, bring us almost into the hyper contemporary, don't they?
Yes, let's play them, and then we'll talk a little bit, and we'll talk with everybody that's tuned in as well.
The integrity in our hearts, the determination in our will to make this world a better place, to make the sun wash clean our souls and quench the thirst of a dried out existence, and make believe all things are possible. And God, however you call him or her, has never left your side. I want to see the sun smiling and watch him caress the moon and give her stars to wear in her hair. No prisons, no locks, stars to wear in her hair. Stars to wear in her hair. Stars to wear. No prisons, no locks, no keys, no killings, no prisons.
That's karma. That's karma. Yeah. That's karma. That's karma. Yeah. Yeah. Well, go around, come back around. Now I ain't packing, but I'm the baddest pack around. I send them packing when I bring the Akis round. Those soap fish, I sold kicks, bruv, look at me now. Oh, hero business. Murder the game, leave no witness. The hurt and the pain weave to riches. I prefer no fame, but it leaves a prick's vex. They call me dirty pack and dirty hack. I couldn't skirt about, I gonna skirt and that. Rejection kinda hurting that. Scared of the flag, now we stretching that. Self-love, we flexing that. Unless the girl's about, then she's sexing that. Icons will texting, man, slides on like Instagram. First of my kind, I got 'em thinking that it's just a tan. Red carpet with the fam, big hearted with the fans. Aboriginal nutter, tell any boy I boomerang.
And AR, of course, I think those tracks kind of speak for themselves. Riz Ahmed, who's, if I can say, having a moment right now with that track Karma. And I mean, I think he manifests just about everything we talk about in this set. And
Absolutely.
And then folks that are kind of like the precursor to all of this in a sense, right? The Last Poets with a more contemporary track of theirs, but folks that kind of start this whole revolution for us.
And you know, in Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem, where the Last Poets first gathered, coming out of the Black Arts movement, you know, led by people like Sonia Sanchez and Amiri Baraka, who were directly channeling Malcolm, who are directly channeling Malcolm X. The Black Arts movement comes out of that radical, international, transnational tradition, doesn't it? And the Last Poets themselves, amongst their members, most of them eventually or are Muslim, and so their invocation there of God. And I love the fact that they played with God, you know, she or him. You know, there's a playfulness to it, but there's also a return to spirituality and imagination. They are the last poets because since the very beginning they have been imagining that just future. And Riz, I mean, in this album, The Long Goodbye, is essentially like, you know, I think people like us connect to Riz, He's talking karma, man. He's talking what happens when the empire, when those you colonize strike back. What happens when those you colonize are the most creative, vital, powerful force in your post-colonial societies? What happens when that music becomes not only a means of resistance, but what Riz is saying, I think, in this album is, I don't need you no more. I don't need your systems. I don't need your culture. I'm not just done. I've taken what I need and I'm creating my own. So goodbye to your framing, to your cognitive and cultural frames.
And you know,
you're
Riz,
right.
to me,
That's in a way the message, right? I really vibe with that. I really resonate with that.
And Riz is a creative genius, I think, because Riz is talking about all these things in such a powerful way through his music, through his acting, through speaking, through collecting art in all these different ways. And we were talking earlier, he reminds me almost of our current Mos Def or Yassine Bey in that way, right? Multi-talented, is putting stuff out there. And I hope he stays around and continues this, because we need folks like him. We need folks like him to mentor folks as well. We have one more song, but I want to kind of have an engagement with the audience, take some questions, and then we want to play this video that is extremely powerful to me. It's based in Chicago, and it's really important. So we're going to go out with that song once we've taken a few questions.
There's a great question, Asad, that we can jump right into, and,
sure.
And all of you, you've been listening while Muslim with us for the last 70 minutes. There's a question from Shireen Ahmed about our aversion or our allergy to the word fusion. I think it's a really, really good question, because I think a lot of us would look at the musics that we've listened to over the last 70 minutes, see the ways in which different forms, instruments, artists, composers are playing with each other, through each other. Why don't we like the word fusion?
You know, for me as a DJ and as a music producer in a lot of ways, the reason I don't like fusion is it's usually this word that means cheesy or forced often. And the music is kind of forced together. It's done just for the sake of being a fusion. It also often comes from the power establishment saying we should bring these things together so that audiences can understand it, right? How much of those fusions are organic? How much of them are, say, from the global south with the global south? So of course, when that happens and it's organic and it's natural, it makes sense. But when it happens just from a utilitarian perspective, that's when I don't like the word fusion. Of course, the thing is that there's nothing wrong with the word itself, and a lot of these things that we're playing are completely fusions. It's just come to mean something, especially in what you would call the world music genre, that sometimes you have like this kind of reaction to.
You know, I think I would take that one step further. I say, like, I think what concerns us is appropriation, right?
Yeah.
And who are those who are guiding the process of collaboration? And when I think about fusion, I think about, like, if you're in the UK, the two fingers, or in the United States, the one finger salute that the great Ali Farka Touré gave to his own production company after he had retired to the shores of the Niger River, and he was the mayor of his town, Neofunke, and Rai Cooder and all these other kind of monumental musicians in the Western canon wanted to kind of perform with him, and he's like, I ain't going nowhere. You come to Neofunke, right? You want to talk Timbuktu? I'll talk Timbuktu in Timbuktu.
Right.
And they had to drag their equipment and drag themselves to him. And it was Ali Farka saying, enough. Enough. I've performed. I've given you my music. I've given you my soul. Now's the time for my community, my people, my farm. You know, and I've met Ali Farka's son, and you know him as well, via Farka Touré, and they describe, the farm that is in Neofunke, and I think that to me says what Ali Farka was saying about fusion, like, speaks to me, right? Like, I'm open to collaboration, I'm open to us talking, but let's talk about the ground on which we're talking, isn't it?
No, definitely. And we've got a lot of great feedback. I just want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in, and also people asking about a playlist. We will put it up on Spotify, as we always do. Just know that we intentionally have one or two tracks that you can't find on Spotify that you won't find there, but that's part of the DJ digging in the crates type of thing. AR, can we play this last track? To me, it's deeply spiritual in a lot of ways.
Yeah, let's do it.
The artists are spiritual in the sense. Eben, is that okay with you to play this?
Yeah, it's fine. I just wanted to pause for a second and acknowledge just what a fantastic event you have curated for us here. You've given us a a treat for the ears and a treat for the mind. And I was writing down these artists frantically, so I'm glad to see there's a playlist, and to point everyone else who came to that playlist as well. They're going to have a lot of wonderful listening ahead, and just affirming all the fantastic comments coming in here. This has just been a real treat for us. So I wanted to just acknowledge.
And we want to say a big thank you to you, Eben, to Raymond Vogel, and the rest of the team, to our good friend Martin Jean and the Institute for Sacred Music for convening this space, you know, for these kinds of conversations. Once you start listening while Muslim and listening like a Muslim, Asad, you can't stop, because it's an oral lens that keeps that is revelatory and liberating. And we encourage all of you to continue listening with different ears. And we invite you into that space to continue listening with different ears, because we find that you know, musics that seem so familiar to us all of a sudden begin to take on magnificent possibility. Let's listen to this amazing last track, and let's see this amazing last track, which goes to the heart of the fight for justice.
We're going to play this video. It's pretty much brand new. Go to listeningwhilemuslim.com. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook, and listen to our next session, May 1st, Reflect in Ramadan. It's going to be something you've never heard before or imagined. But right now we're going to go to Vic Mensa with Wyclef and Chance the Rapper and their newest song called Shelter.